She fixed jets for 3 years, invisible to pilots. When the base came under attack and all aircraft were grounded, the quiet mechanic removed her coveralls and said, "I'm Colonel Jessica Kane, call sign Viper. Officially KIA, but still flying. Welcome to Secrets Never Told." Before we begin this incredible story of hidden identity and impossible courage, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those who serve in silence. Edwards Air Force Base stretched across the Mojave Desert like a testament to American air power, its runways cutting precise lines through the endless expanse of sand and sage. At 0530 hours, the base hummed with the controlled chaos of another training day. F-22 Raptors and F-35 Lightning IIs preparing for dawn sorties under the California sun. In Hangar 7, aircraft mechanic Jessica Thompson worked alone on the engine maintenance of Raptor 07-4144. Her blonde hair pulled back in a regulation ponytail, safety glasses perched over striking blue eyes. At 28, she possessed the kind of natural beauty that turned heads even in coveralls. High cheekbones, full lips, and an athletic frame that spoke of discipline and strength. Yet for 3 years, she had been practically invisible to the pilots who flew the aircraft she maintained. They saw the work, never the worker. Her exceptional technical skills were acknowledged with brief nods and perfunctory praise. But Jessica Thompson, the person, remained as elusive as a ghost. "Morning, Jess," called Technical Sergeant Mike Rodriguez as he entered the hangar, carrying his first cup of coffee. "How's she looking?" Jessica glanced up from the F-119 engine she was inspecting, a slight smile crossing her face. "Port engine had some minor vibration issues yesterday. Probably just needs recalibration, but I want to be thorough." What Rodriguez didn't know was that Jessica's thoroughness came from intimate knowledge of the F-22's capabilities that far exceeded any mechanic's training. She knew exactly how the aircraft would respond under extreme stress because she had pushed it to those limits herself. Captain Diana Phoenix Martinez strode into the hangar with the confident bearing of a combat-tested pilot. At 35, she commanded the first fighter wing with distinction, her dark hair always perfectly arranged, her flight suit pressed to regulation standards. She was known throughout the Air Force as one of the finest pilots of her generation. "Thompson," Captain Martinez addressed Jessica with professional courtesy. "What's the status on 4144? "I'm scheduled for air-to-air combat training at 0800. Jessica stood, wiping her hands on a clean rag. "Engine diagnostics complete, ma'am. She's ready for flight operation." Captain Martinez nodded approvingly. "Outstanding work, as always. Your maintenance record is the best on base." As the captain departed to complete her pre-flight preparations, Jessica returned to her work, her hands moving with practiced precision over controls and systems that felt as familiar as breathing. She had flown this exact aircraft configuration dozens of times in another life when she was Colonel Jessica Kane, one of the most decorated F-22 pilots in Air Force history. 3 years ago, Colonel Kane had been declared killed in action during a classified mission over the South China Sea. Her F-22 had been tracked disappearing into a storm system during a deep reconnaissance operation. No wreckage was ever recovered. No body was ever found. The official record listed her as KIA, her service record sealed under the highest classification levels. The truth was far more complex. Colonel Kane had survived the mission that was meant to kill her, but returning to her old life would have exposed a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of defense contracting. Instead, she chose to disappear, taking on the identity of Jessica Thompson, aircraft mechanic, and waiting for the day when justice could be served. At 0755 hours, Jessica watched from the hangar as Captain Martinez taxied Raptor 4144 toward the active runway. The F-22's twin engines created heat mirages in the desert air, the aircraft's stealth profile cutting an elegant silhouette against the morning sky. Her radio crackled with tower communications. "Phoenix 1, you are cleared for takeoff. Runway 04. Climb and maintain Angels 25. Tower, Phoenix 1, cleared for takeoff," came Captain Martinez's crisp reply. Jessica's trained ear detected something wrong immediately. The engine harmonics weren't right. Not the recalibration issue she had noted earlier, but something else entirely. An irregular resonance that suggested deliberate sabotage. Before she could reach for her radio, the first explosion echoed across the base. At 0801 hours, explosions simultaneously destroyed the base's primary communications tower, control facility, and main ammunition depot. Black smoke billowed into the desert sky as emergency alarms blared across Edwards AFB. Jessica dropped her tools and ran toward the nearest operations center, her mechanical expertise instantly shifting to tactical assessment. The attack pattern was too coordinated to be random terrorism. This was a military-style operation designed to neutralize the base's defensive capabilities. In the air, Captain Martinez was fighting for her life as her F-22 systems began failing in sequence. The sabotage Jessica had detected was systematic, designed to bring down the aircraft once it was airborne. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Phoenix 1. Captain Martinez's voice crackled over the emergency frequency. "I have multiple system failures. Engines failing, requesting immediate emergency landing." But Edwards Air Force Base was no longer capable of supporting emergency operations. The runways were cratered, the control tower destroyed, the crash and rescue teams cut off by burning fuel depots. Jessica reached the temporary command post where Colonel Robert Hayes, the base commander, was coordinating emergency response efforts. His usually calm demeanor was strained as reports flooded in from across the installation. "Sir?" Jessica approached him directly, ignoring protocol. "I need to speak with you immediately." Colonel Hayes glanced at her impatiently. "Mechanic, this isn't the time for maintenance reports." "Colonel, that F-22 in the air was sabotaged. Captain Martinez is going to die unless someone can talk her through an emergency landing procedure that's not in any manual." "What are you talking about?" Jessica made a decision that would shatter 3 years of carefully maintained cover. "Sir, I'm not just a mechanic. I know that aircraft better than anyone alive because I've flown it in conditions Captain Martinez can't imagine." Before Colonel Hayes could respond, the radio crackled with increasing desperation. Any station. This is Phoenix 1. I'm losing altitude. Engines are failing. I need guidance for emergency landing." Jessica keyed the radio without permission. "Phoenix 1, this is ground control. I can help you." "Negative, ground control. Tower is destroyed." "Who is this?" Jessica looked Colonel Hayes in the eye. "Phoenix 1, this is Colonel Jessica Kane. Call sign Viper. I'm officially KIA, but I'm about to save your life." The silence over the radio was deafening. Every operator on the emergency frequency had heard the name Viper, the legendary F-22 pilot whose impossible flying had become Air Force legend before her reported death 3 years earlier. "Viper, you're dead." Captain Martinez's voice was stunned. "Phoenix, I'll explain later. Right now, follow my instructions exactly. You're dealing with systematic sabotage designed to bring you down during flight operation." Colonel Hayes stared at Jessica as if seeing her for the first time. The quiet mechanic's entire demeanor had transformed. Her posture straightened with command authority. Her voice carried the calm confidence of someone who had faced death in the cockpit and won. "Thompson, Kane, who are you really?" Colonel Hayes demanded. "Sir, I'm the pilot who discovered the defense contractor conspiracy that's been sabotaging our aircraft. 3 years ago, I was supposed to die in that F-22 over the South China Sea. Instead, I've been hiding here, gathering evidence, waiting for them to make their final move." Captain Martinez's situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Viper, I'm losing hydraulics. Backup systems are failing. This bird is trying to kill me." Jessica's mind raced through the specific sabotage patterns she had identified. "Phoenix, listen carefully. They've compromised your primary flight controls, but there's a manual override sequence that's not in the official documentation. It was classified technology I helped develop." Working through the radio, Jessica guided Captain Martinez through an emergency procedure that existed in no training manual. The process required precise timing and absolute trust in instructions that seemed to violate everything the captain knew about F-22 operations. "Viper, this is insane. You're asking me to manually override systems that are supposed to be automated." "Phoenix, I've done this exact procedure under combat conditions. Trust me and live, or follow standard protocol and die. Your choice." The base perimeter was under assault by unknown attackers, but Jessica's focus remained entirely on the pilot fighting for survival in the sky above them. She knew every circuit, every backup system, every hidden capability of the F-22 because she had helped design some of them during her time in developmental test flight operations. "Phoenix, you should have manual control restoration in 3, 2, 1, now." "Holy shit, Viper, I have control. How did you know that would work?" Before Jessica could answer, new explosions erupted across the base. The attackers weren't just conducting a random assault, they were systematically destroying evidence of the sabotage program that Jessica had been investigating for 3 years. Colonel Hayes was coordinating base defense when the realization struck him. "Kane, Viper, you've been here for 3 years. You've had access to every aircraft, every system, every classified operation." "Yes, sir, and I've documented everything. The sabotage, the cover-up, the defense contractors who've been selling out American pilots for profit." In the air, Captain Martinez had managed to stabilize her aircraft, but the situation remained critical. "Viper, I can maintain flight, but I can't land here. The runways are destroyed." Jessica calculated rapidly. "Phoenix, there's an auxiliary strip 15 miles northwest. It's not officially active, but it's long enough for emergency landing. I don't have that location in my navigation system. I'll talk you in personally. I know every inch of desert airspace within than 100 miles. What followed was a masterclass in airmanship, conducted entirely by radio. Jessica guided Captain Martinez through desert navigation using landmarks and techniques that no mechanic should have known, demonstrating an intimate knowledge of tactical flying that could only come from years of combat experience. 30 minutes later, Captain Martinez successfully landed her sabotaged F-22 on a remote desert strip that most pilots didn't know existed. As she climbed from the cockpit, her legs shaking with residual adrenaline, she found Jessica waiting beside a rescue vehicle. For the first time, Captain Martinez truly looked at the woman she had known as a mechanic. Blonde hair, now released from its ponytail, caught the desert wind. Blue eyes held the steady confidence of someone who had just saved her life from 300 miles away, and her bearing carried an authority that no enlisted mechanic could possess. "You're really her," Captain Martinez said quietly. "You're really Viper." Jessica nodded. "And you're alive because sometimes legends have to break cover to protect the people they've sworn to serve." The investigation that followed Jessica's revelation exposed a conspiracy involving 3 major defense contractors and over 50 compromised aircraft across multiple Air Force bases. The systematic sabotage had been designed to create failures during combat operations, making American pilots vulnerable to enemies who had purchased classified technical specification. What investigators discovered was even more disturbing than Jessica had initially suspected. The sabotage program had been operating for 7 years, directly responsible for 12 accidental aircraft losses and the deaths of 9 American pilots. Each incident had been carefully staged to appear as mechanical failure or pilot error, with the true cause buried under layers of falsified maintenance records and corrupted investigation reports. The conspiracy reached into the highest levels of defense procurement. General Patricia Hawkins, Deputy Chief of Staff for Logistics, had been receiving payments totaling $4.2 million over 5 years in exchange for approving compromised replacement parts. The parts appeared identical to standard specification, but contained microscopic alterations that would cause catastrophic failure under specific stress conditions. Jessica's 3 years undercover had provided investigators with detailed documentation of every compromised component, every falsified report, and every payment made to corrupt officials. Her mechanic's access had allowed her to photograph serial numbers, copy classified correspondence, and record conversations that would have been impossible to obtain through traditional investigation methods. "The hardest part wasn't maintaining my cover," Jessica explained to the Joint Congressional Committee investigating the scandal. "It was watching pilots fly aircraft I knew had been sabotaged, knowing that speaking up too early would allow the real perpetrators to escape justice." The committee chairman, Senator William Richardson, leaned forward with obvious interest. "General Kane, you're saying you personally witnessed the installation of compromised components?" "Yes, sir. I documented 17 specific instances where replacement parts were deliberately swapped for sabotaged versions during routine maintenance. I have photographs, serial numbers, and audio recordings of the conversations surrounding each incident." The scope of the conspiracy extended beyond simple financial corruption. Foreign intelligence services had infiltrated the supply chain, using the sabotage program to gather detailed intelligence on American aircraft capabilities. Every failure provided enemy analysts with precise data on F-22 and F-35 performance limitations. Dr. Sarah Chen, the FBI's lead forensic investigator on the case, testified about the sophisticated nature of the sabotage. The components were engineered to fail only under specific operational parameters: high-G maneuvers, extended flight duration, or combat stress conditions. In normal training flights, they would function perfectly, making detection nearly impossible through standard testing protocols. Jessica's background in developmental test flight operations had been crucial to identifying the sabotage pattern. As Colonel Kane, she had been involved in the original testing of many systems that were later compromised. Her intimate knowledge of normal versus abnormal performance parameters allowed her to detect anomalies that other investigators had missed. Captain Martinez had become more than Jessica's deputy in the new security program. She had become her closest ally in understanding the personal cost of the conspiracy. During one of their late-night briefings, Martinez asked the question that haunted both women: "How many pilots died because we didn't catch this sooner?" 9 confirmed, Jessica replied quietly. "But I think about the 12 who survived catastrophic failures. They're carrying trauma they don't even understand, believing they somehow caused their aircraft to malfunction." The psychological impact on surviving pilots had been devastating. Lieutenant Colonel Mark Stevens had been grounded for 2 years after his F-35 experienced total system failure during a training mission. He had blamed himself for the near crash, despite the investigation officially ruling it mechanical failure. Learning that his aircraft had been deliberately sabotaged required months of counseling to overcome the guilt and self-doubt. I kept replaying that flight, wondering what I did wrong, Stevens testified before the investigative committee. The knowledge that my aircraft was sabotaged changes everything, but it doesn't erase the psychological damage of believing I nearly died because of my own incompetence. Jessica's testimony revealed the personal sacrifice required to maintain her undercover operation. For 3 years, she had been forced to watch friends and colleagues struggle with the aftermath of sabotaged aircraft while being unable to offer the truth that would heal their psychological wounds. General Kane, Senator Richardson asked, "Why didn't you reveal yourself sooner? Surely the lives saved would have outweighed the risk to your investigation." Jessica considered the question carefully. "Senator, revealing myself earlier would have saved individual lives, but allowed the conspiracy to continue. The perpetrators would have simply moved their operation to a different base, different aircraft, different victims. The only way to stop them permanently was to gather enough evidence to expose the entire network." The evidence Jessica had collected led to the arrest of 43 individuals across military, corporate, and foreign intelligence organizations. The trials that followed revealed the true scope of American vulnerability to insider threats and led to comprehensive reforms in defense contractor oversight. But beyond the legal and policy implications, Jessica's story became a legend within Air Force culture. Young female pilots in particular drew inspiration from her example of service beyond recognition, sacrifice beyond understanding. Captain Maria Santos, a recent F-22 pilot graduate, sought out Jessica for mentorship. "General, how do you maintain your sense of purpose when your service has to remain hidden?" Jessica smiled, remembering her own early career questions. "Captain, true service isn't about recognition. It's about being where you're needed, when you're needed, regardless of whether anyone will ever know you were there." The new aircraft security protocol that Jessica developed became the gold standard for detecting sabotage across all military aircraft systems. The program required mechanics to undergo additional security training, established redundant verification procedures for all replacement parts, and created secure communication channels for reporting suspicious activities. More importantly, the program fostered a culture of vigilance and mutual protection among aircraft maintenance personnel. Jessica's example demonstrated that extraordinary service could come from the most unexpected sources, encouraging everyone from junior mechanics to senior officers to remain alert to threats that traditional security measures might miss. The transformation of Edwards Air Force Base following the investigation became a model for military installations worldwide. The base implemented revolutionary security protocols that combined traditional oversight with the human intelligence gathering that Jessica's undercover operation had demonstrated was essential. Chief Master Sergeant Lisa Park, who had worked alongside Jessica for 2 years without suspecting her true identity, became one of the program's most effective advocates. "General Kane taught us that the person changing your oil might be the person saving your life," Park explained to visiting delegation from NATO allies. "We learned to look beyond rank insignia and job classifications to recognize expertise wherever it exists." The international implications of the sabotage conspiracy extended far beyond American air power. Allied nations discovered that similar infiltration had occurred in their own defense procurement systems. The evidence Jessica had gathered revealed a coordinated campaign by foreign intelligence services to systematically weaken Western air superiority through supply chain compromise. British Royal Air Force Squadron Leader Emma Thompson testified before Parliament about the discovery of compromised components in RAF Typhoon aircraft. The investigation initiated by General Kane's findings revealed that we had been flying compromised aircraft for 18 months. Without her sacrifice and dedication, we might never have discovered the threat. The personal cost of Jessica's 3-year undercover operation extended beyond professional sacrifice. She had been forced to sever all personal relationships, abandon her previous identity completely, and live with the constant psychological strain of maintaining a false persona while watching colleagues unknowingly risk their lives. Dr. Michael Harrison, the Air Force psychologist assigned to Jessica's reintegration, documented the unique challenges faced by deep cover operatives in military settings. General Kane experienced a form of identity displacement that's rare even among intelligence operatives. She had to suppress not just her personal history, but her professional expertise and natural leadership instincts. The psychological evaluation revealed that Jessica had developed extraordinary compartmentalization skills, allowing her to function effectively as a mechanic while maintaining the strategic thinking capabilities that had made her an exceptional pilot. This mental flexibility became a key component of the new security training protocols. Jessica's relationship with Captain Martinez evolved into one of the strongest partnerships in modern Air Force history. Their collaboration demonstrated how shared trauma and mutual respect could transcend traditional military hierarchies. Martinez often credited Jessica with teaching her that true leadership meant recognizing and developing hidden potential in subordinates. "The general showed me that the most dangerous assumption in military service is thinking you know everything about the people around you," Martinez explained during a leadership conference at the Air Force Academy. "Every airman has capabilities that might be invisible until the moment those capabilities are desperately needed." The mentorship program Jessica established paired experienced pilots with maintenance personnel, breaking down traditional barriers between officer and enlisted ranks. The program's success led to its adoption across all Air Force command, fundamentally changing how the service approached professional development and cross-training. One of Jessica's most prized achievements was the graduation of Technical Sergeant Angela Rodriguez, the first enlisted airman to transition from aircraft maintenance to pilot training under the new program. Rodriguez had demonstrated exceptional understanding of flight dynamics during her maintenance duties, prompting Jessica to recommend her for flight evaluation. "General Kane saw something in me that I didn't see in myself," Rodriguez said at her pilot graduation ceremony. "She proved that in the Air Force, your potential matters more than your current position." The ripple effects of Jessica's revelation continued for years after the initial investigation concluded. Congressional testimony led to comprehensive reform of defense contractor oversight, international cooperation agreements on supply chain security, and new protocols for identifying and protecting deep cover operatives in military settings. Colonel Jessica Kane was officially resurrected from K-1A status and promoted to Brigadier General with full command authority over the new aircraft security program. But more importantly, she had saved the life of a fellow pilot and prevented what would have been a catastrophic loss of American air superiority. Captain Martinez, who had nicknamed Jessica Angel after the desert rescue, became her deputy in the new program. Together, they implemented security protocols that ensured no future sabotage could threaten American pilots. "Why did you wait 3 years?" Captain Martinez asked Jessica during their first official briefing as commanding and deputy officers. Jessica looked out the window at the F-22s returning to normal flight operations. "Because sometimes the best way to protect people is to become invisible until the moment they need you most." The official record now shows that Colonel Jessica Kane died in the line of duty and was posthumously awarded the Air Force Cross for valor. But it also shows that Brigadier General Jessica Kane returned from the dead to save American lives and expose the greatest threat to Air Force security in modern history. Sometimes heroes die and live again. Sometimes mechanics are pilots. Sometimes the person you never notice is the one keeping you alive. Have you ever known someone who carried secret knowledge that could save lives? Someone whose true capabilities remained hidden until the moment crisis demanded everything they had to give? Share their story in the comments below and let us know what city you're watching from today. If this story moved you, subscribe to Secrets Never Told. We're here to honor the invisible guardians whose courage transcends identity, whose service continues beyond death, and whose sacrifice ensures that others can fly safely in skies they'll never see again.